Good evening and welcome to the City of Cedar Falls Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for this Tuesday, November 24th, 2020. I would start with the, first I'll just make a note. We are again coming to you via video conference. And if you are not on the Zoom call and would like to participate in tonight's meeting, you can do that. There's a number of ways by phone and computer. If you're watching on TV or another source and want to get involved, you can get onto the city website and get the information for logging in into the Zoom meeting if you'd like to participate. We have a couple items on the agenda tonight, I think, which there are people desiring to participate. So we want to make sure that people are aware of that. We'll start tonight with the roll call, and I'll ask Ms. Howard to take the roll call.
Okay, good evening. Hartley?
Here.
Holst?
Here.
Larson?
Here.
Leeper?
Here.
Lynch?
Here.
Prideaux?
Here.
Saul?
Here.
Strad?
Here.
Sears?
Here.
Great, thank you. Well, and we get to welcome a new member tonight. Abby Sears is her first meeting and the newest member of Planning and Zoning. Welcome, Abby. We appreciate you be willing to serve to fill a vacant spot on the commission. So we look forward to working with you in the future here.
Thank you.
All right. Well, our first item here is to the approval of the minutes from actually two meetings, a regular meeting from November 11th, 2020, and also the work session that followed that from November 11th, 2020. If there are no corrections, I would entertain a motion to approve both.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second. Kyle
Moved
here.
and seconded. All in favor signify by aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Let's see, that motion carries. At this time of the meeting, we have space for public comments, and that would be for anybody who would like to have a comment for the commission that doesn't involve any of the items on tonight's agenda. And if you are so inclined and would like to make a comment, if you would raise your hand on the Zoom attendees, I would recognize you. And I'll just do a quick check here, see if we've got anybody wanting to make a comment. Seeing none, we'll go on from public comments. And note we have three items of new business tonight that are all related. And I have a conflict of interest in with those items. So I am going to hand over chairing of the meeting for these three items to Vice Chair Brad Leeper. And when you're all done with that, Brad, you can call me back in and we will finish up the meeting. So at this point, Brad, you're running the show.
All right, sounds good, Marty. Thanks for the power. So we have three items on the agenda tonight, all surrounding the Autumn Ridge development. Want to make special note that these are just for public input and introduction of these items tonight, and we will not be voting on them. But we're going to start with the amendment of master plan for Autumn Ridge development and staff report. I'm not sure who's doing that. JD?
Yes, that would be me, Mr. Thank you. I'm just trying to share my screen. One moment, please. Can you all see the screen?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So good evening, everyone. So I'll start with the first one. So the first item we have is the amendment of master plan for Autumn Ridge development. As you can see this on the screen, this is the location map. On the right side, the area which is within the red boundary is the entire development. The entire development is about 105 acres, which includes like lots of addition and This has developed over 20 years of time frame. Initially started in 2001 and it is still going on in 2020. So just to know everybody a brief history about this whole development. So an RP master plan was amended and the entire property or the development area was rezoned from agriculture to RP. This was the master plan that was approved. As you can see on the screen, there were 5 different segments or areas in this master plan. The area A, which is the blue, is basically was reserved for condominium units. Area C, which is the pink in color, slightly, which was more for independent living. Area D, which is the yellow area, was reserved for condominiums and patio homes. And area E was reserved, which is green in color, which was reserved for single family units, duplex units, and lake plus green space and amenities for the entire development. So this was how it was laid out. And I think in total there were 77 lots that was planned at that time with 479 units. With a total density per acre as 4.6 units per acre. So that was the idea in 2001. Following that, I think there was another RP plan amendment to reflect some of the changes in 2005 and 2006. The changes were reflected with a proposal of Autumn Ridge 2nd, 3rd, and 4th edition in 3 different areas, as you can see on your screen. The south area, which is the Autumn Ridge 2nd, which is highlighted in red, Autumn Ridge 3rd, which is highlighted in orange, which is along the Paddington Drive, and Autumn Ridge 4th edition, which is along Thresher Court. So those are the 3 things that came up, and the RP plan was amended at that time to include this as part of the entire development. Further coming down, in 2013, there was a preliminary plat that the developer applied and received approval. I think at this point of time, there were preliminary plat for 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th edition. On the left image, you might see the entire development that was being planned in correspondence with the existing development, whereas on the right side, it's more clear about where all these additions will be taking place. So all of those are highlighted on that map, so kind of relate both those things together. Just so we know, in Autumn Ridge 8th edition, at that time in 2013, there were 31 lots proposed for single family dwelling units. And in Autumn Ridge 9th edition, as you can see, which is the top left corner of the subdivision, there were 27 single family dwelling units that were proposed at time. However, there was no RP master plan amendment at that time. Or in other words, the master plan was not updated at that point of time. However, if you can see the area, which is Autumn Ridge 9th and 8th in 2013 has currently become the proposal for Autumn Ridge 9th edition, which we'll be reviewing in the further slides tonight. So that happened in 2013. And this is what the subdivision looks like today. So I've just tried to highlight all the subdivision that took place in Autumn Ridge. The moment we have discussed the history from 2nd to all the 10th editions. Just want to highlight the 2 proposed edition, which is Autumn Ridge 9th, which is proposed along West 1st, south of West 1st and west of Union Road, the top one, which is highlighted in blue. And the one which is highlighted in brown color, which is Autumn Ridge 10th edition, which is going to be along west side of Autumn Lane and north of Autumn Ridge 2nd edition. So those are the two things that has been proposed with this master plan amendment. So we start with the RP master plan amendment. This is the master plan that was submitted by the applicant. The whole idea about this revision is these are the only last two pieces of development left in the entire subdivision. So this will be the final piece of how the entire development will look like. Starting with Autumn Ridge 9th, which is in blue and red. Autumn Ridge 9th edition is proposing 95 units, which will include 60 duplex units and 35 single family units. The highlighted blue areas are where the single family units are going to be added, and the red area is where the duplex units will be in place. Whereas the Autumn Ridge 10th edition, which is highlighted in purple area, this will be a continuation of existing Six Flags, which is just south of the proposed subdivision. So this is all why I'm saying existing, because this edition or this Autumn Ridge 10th edition is almost going to be similar to the one which is already built. So people can relate to that one. So idea for Autumn Ridge 10th is proposing 6 lots with 6 sixplexes, which will be phased in 2 parts. So that's kind of summary, and I think in this master plan everybody can relate where the existing development is highlighted in this today's scenario. Moving on to some detail sections. So proposed Autumn Ridge 9th edition will be 2-phase development with 16 single family units and 26 duplex units in the first phase, and 19 single family units and 34 duplex units in the second phase. However, city staff believes that the proposal is well thought with the provision of future street connections and access point to develop the future surrounding areas, meaning that the future stub are provided, which will be adjoining which will be helping the other areas surrounding the development to be developed in future. One more important thing that everybody should note is this proposal includes increase in density from 58 single family units to 35 single family units and 60 bi-attached units. This is a bigger change as far as the density of this area is concerned. City staff is, however, supportive of a variety of housing types and additional density to meet the market demand. This is another example. This is an example that was provided by the developer regarding typology of unit that the bi-attached dwelling unit is going to have, which is the red area. However, there are some of the concerns that city staff has regarding this proposal. First concern is the excessive paving along street frontage. As you can see on the image on the right, it's a driveway exhibit. This was included in the packet. Might not be clear much here. So the city staff is concerned with the excessive paving along the streets, especially for the bi-attached dwelling units. The major reasons for that is it adds congestion to the streets, provides little room for on-street parking, the sidewalk continuity is compromised because of excessive curb cuts. The front yards will be mostly paved, and therefore there will be like no room for landscaping or for street trees in the subdivision. These are our concerns that the staff has about the proposal of bi-attached dwelling units. We wanted to show you, highlight one of the example that we have in the city. As you can see, image to the left, which is on Lauren Drive. this is the example that shows similar approach with excessive curb cuts on the drive, and city staff believe that such developments are not good for practice. As you can see on the image on the below the plan is basically where this existing development looks like. As you see, there are limited areas where people can park on the streets. When with excessive curb cuts, it's really hard to have a safe pedestrian passage as well. So city staff knows that, we don't want to continue this mistakes again and we want to have a better community with better livable standards. City staff offered a number of suggestions or alternatives and is also open to any alternatives from the developer that can mitigate this excessive curb cuts in the neighborhood. There are some of the items or alternatives suggested by staff were proposing bi-attached units with alley-loaded garages that would just provide little more offset in the front yard, increasing the landscape area. As you can see on the image on the right, it's a bi-attached dwelling unit with some green space and pedestrian access area to the houses. The garages are located in the back with an alley. The other idea was to have townhomes with alley-loaded garages that would also allow more similar kind of approaches and possibly provide a safe pedestrian environment, and I would say pedestrian-friendly environment. And the staff also suggested like having common driveways for attached units or limiting size of the units with like 2-car garages or driveway curb cuts. So number of suggestions and alternatives were suggested to the developer. The whole idea behind the alley loaded garages or the bi-attached units with alley loaded garages is it not only provides more of front yard with green space, but also provides the backyard with like a courtyard formation of green space with the same units. So we're not either compromising the front yard or the backyard in that fact. The other concern that the city has is the sidewalk connection. The city staff is concerned with the discontinuity of the public sidewalk along Union Road. We are talking about the sidewalk which is west of Union Road. As you can see, the existing sidewalk is completed up to Paddington Drive, which is here. And the sidewalk section from Paddington Drive to the northeast corner of the subdivision, which is here, should be addressed in the development agreement and be completed with Autumn Ridge 9th edition. City staff is mentioning this as per City Code section 20.5 C 10 and 11, and also the deed of dedication that mentioned that sidewalks will be in place when the subdivision goes in. The reason why I'm highlighting all these three subdivision is the area where the sidewalk is pending is abutting Autumn Ridge 3rd and 5th edition, which were platted way back, and the development is also done. So we just want that continuity to be maintained, not only for the benefits of the people to access pedestrian, but also to promote the livability standard that RB zoning is known for. The other concern that we have is the community space or shared usable open space. I'm highlighting two master plans. One is the existing that was in 2001 and one which is in 2020, which is the proposed below. The original master plan, as we initially talked about, was approved with a development agreement that indicated that a lake with trails would be provided as shared open space for the community. The current proposed master plan does not include those features. The city staff is not opposed with the elimination of the wet bottom stormwater basin, which was the lake but is opposed to the elimination of shared accessible open space and amenities that was visioned for the entire community. City staff have provided number of suggestions based on how to carve out this shared usable space. City staff notes that these are the needs as per the city code section 26G subdivision standards, and also needs as per principles of RP zoning district that a usable open space should be provided to meet the needs of the neighborhood. City staff also recommends that some usable space or open space be designated within the Autumn Ridge 9th edition as originally agreed in the 2001 master plan. One of the wanted to highlight this, one of the fact that the city staff notes is developer did designate some private open space between the backyards of Autumn Ridge 3rd and Autumn Ridge 6th. The area which is highlighted in green color, green boundary, is where this space was allotted. The space is not accessible to other edition, but only accessible to the people who lives around the boundary of the space, and possibly like more private space than a public space. The space is not ideal for a public park as it is not accessible for people in the neighborhood. So this is a point that needs to be noted for the commission while reviewing the master plan. The other suggestion that the city staff notes is the original master plan was showed with a 3 to 5 acre land that was reserved for a detention lake with public amenities in the periphery area for entire subdivision. I'm just trying to contrast these two situations here. Having a 2 to 3 acre of neighborhood park is needed in this subdivision to serve about 400 dwelling units in this entire subdivision. This is the belief that the city staff has. Parks Department has indicated that an accessible neighborhood park is needed for this area, and the department will be willing to accept about 2 to 3 acre of neighborhood park, possibly in the southeast corner, which is highlighted in that green area of the proposed 9th edition. This will ensure that park space is accessible to the surrounding neighborhoods, and it not only meets the standards for RP zoning, but also would help to increase the livability and enhance the quality of life in this neighborhood and surrounding areas. The second piece to this amendment is the proposal of Autumn Ridge 10th edition. As we discussed, this was a two-phased proposal with 3 units, or phase 1 to include 3 sixplexes, followed by 3 sixplexes in the second phase. All these units will be accessed with private drives from Autumn Lane. City staff notes that the sidewalk along Autumn Lane will be added with the development, thus bridging the gap between the existing sidewalk, which is here at the south corner of this proposed area, and will be joining to the existing sidewalk, which was ended at the northmost point of this subdivision. City staff notes that the development is going to be similar to the existing development, which is just south of this addition. Here is a existing picture of this, how this sixplex looks like. So this might just give us an idea of what will be proposed just in those 2 phases. The Community Development Department has reviewed this proposed master plan and have following changes to the proposed RP master plan prior to approval. There are 3 things that we are looking for. One is a common usable open space, which should be provided to enhance the livability of the community. The shared open space should be similar in size of 2 to 3 acres, and a small neighborhood parks could be a great fit for it, as we discussed initially. The other thing is in the proposed 9th edition, reducing the number and size of proposed curb cut for the proposed bioattached units is one thing that the staff is concerned. Staff has given number of suggestions and alternatives and is also open for any ideas that the developer might have to eliminate this concern. And the third thing is to provision of a public sidewalk along Union Road from 9th edition to Paddington Drive to comply with both subdivision code requirements and deed of dedication. So those are our three recommendations. At this time, the city staff notes that the direction, at this point of time, the city staff requests direction from the commission based on the review of the proposed master plan and received public inputs and continue discussion in the future meetings. I'll be stopping my screen share here so that we all can discuss. Thank you.
Thank you, JD, for that good report. Is there anyone from the applicant that would like to speak? If you do, raise your hand.
Yep, sorry, I forgot to mention, I think we have applicants and the consultants online. CGA is the consultant, and applicant Dennis Happel will be here to answer any questions we might have.
All right, looks like we have a couple of questions, so I'm gonna allow Dennis in.
I think Dennis, if you can unmute yourself now.
Can you hear me now?
We can, Dennis, thank you.
Okay. First, thank the commission for reviewing our plans that we have here. There are several things that we have reviewed with staff and have our opinion on also. The lake detention that has been brought up was really taken out of the master plan quite early in the development. With the issues we have to the west of us with the farm ground being uncontrolled runoff, we felt early on that the lake detention area would soon fall into disarray because of all the siltation. In 2016, under the review of Autumn Ridge 6th and 7th, this was taken out by city staff also because of the large stormwater issue that we had to address. The large storm detention that we put in the 6th and 7th edition was to help curb the runoff issues that were being discussed and that they were having. So the lake really went out of the picture quite a while ago, and all of those changes were approved at that time by P&Z and also City Council. The sidewalk issue that they are addressing along Union Road at Paddington Drive, that has gone through two plats of additional plats, and during Autumn Ridge 3rd and Autumn Ridge 5th, which were the two plats that abut that area, we were in conversation with city staff at that time. Unfortunately, none of those people are employed by the city any longer. But their consensus was we did not need to install that area because of the large bike trail across the street. We'd gone through, like I said, two plats. The plats were approved and all the improvements were approved. And so I don't believe it was an oversight by city because we went through two separate plats. If it had been one, we could probably argue that. Going through two full plats and their acceptance of the improvements, I don't believe that that's the issue. We're not opposed to putting the sidewalk in from across the 9th edition for a connection. However, we feel the city should be responsible from the north side of the box culvert area or the 5th Edition boundary down to Paddington. The parking issue that has been brought up, Lauren, the picture he showed of Lauren really is not indicative of the area and the type of situation we will have. Those are all fourplexes, as you noted, and so you're adding 2 more driveways per unit. When we drive around through the Western Home area over off of Green Hill, they have numerous blocks and blocks of duplex units, and that is more indicative of what our neighborhoods are going to look like. And parking is limited to a point. However, there's parking between the driveways. We just don't feel, also in Autumn Ridge 8th, we have the similar concept of duplexes and triplexes. And if you drive through that area, you will see that the on-street parking really isn't an issue. So we don't believe that the parking really presents any kind of a problem. In regards to the alternative development that they had proposed with the back alley, et cetera, in reviewing that, we are trying to get an affordable product for housing in this area. Not, how do I want to say this? Nothing cheap, but affordable for people. By putting the additional alley in, that's an extra expense per unit that has to be assessed to the property owners. And not only that, but also the continued maintenance, snow removal, et cetera. The monthly cost for that would just, it would inhibit what we're trying to accomplish there in affordable housing. It also takes away the backyards, in our opinion, which is where personally we like our kids to play in the backyard, not in the front yard. And so we just did not feel that that was a good solution for the type of neighborhood that we are trying to build here. We feel that our addition as proposed for both the 9th and 10th go very well with the subdivision that we have already started and are completing. This is our final phase, and the housing that we are proposing is, we feel, very needed. We have compromised with city staff. We had duplexes along Union Road. They requested that that be single family, which we did that change. On the western side, which would be any future development to our west at some point in time, is single family also. So we feel that the mixture that we have complements the area. We don't foresee any issues with it, and we welcome any input, any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you, Dennis. I'm going to mute you now. I'm going to open it up for public comment. All right, it looks like we have Jess. I would remind everyone to keep your comments brief and try not to duplicate comments that other people have made.
This is Jesse. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Just a couple things. I live at 4305 Berry Hill, so I'm my backyard butts up to the drainage retention pond, or the lake, not lake. Sorry, the drainage ditch between the properties. Couple areas that are issues in my world. Number one, our houses along Berry Hill were built with low water entry points, and so far with FEMA remapping the flood zones, we have some people on our street now, Bob Zulek down in the corner, who now can't refinance his house without getting flood insurance, which is going to affect his property values. My neighbor, his backyard all the way to his deck structure is now in a floodplain. I can't imagine that going from 58 properties to 95 isn't going to create more of a runoff, and maybe Matt can speak to that, and that ditch is going to be able to take that extra flow. That's not going to have, there's going to be yards there for that to be absorbed. Other issues, downstream, Fieldstone's had issues with ponds. I've seen with their pond and the runoff that's come down. So what will that create? Are the duplex lots fixed, or will they be able to go to single family if people want to go single family on those properties? Is it going to be cookie cutter where everything looks the same? Because one of the appeals to us building where we built was that there was some uniqueness, different developers or different builders that could pick and choose, so we didn't all have the same looking house. And as far as the green space goes, if we're going to propose any green space for that area over there, my opinion is anything not like what we have between those two additions, that's a joke. You can't get to it. All we do is fight amongst the HOAs of who's going to mow it, who's going to take care of the decrepit playground equipment that's there. So if there's a park, is the city going to handle that park and maintaining that, or is that going to be amongst the homeowners? Because I can tell you from personal experience, nobody wants to deal with that. And then to find an insurance company that's going to insure it. So if somebody gets hurt, we're not losing everything that we've saved our lives for. So that's probably the biggest things, just some of the areas of concern that not only for myself, but also people on the street who voiced their concerns to me as the HOA 5th edition president.
Thank you, Jesse. We have Doug Stanford. I'm gonna allow you in, Doug.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. I'm Doug Stanford. I'm president of the Fieldstone Homeowners Association. I'm speaking for the board of directors. We supplied a letter with our concern, which is later on in one of the packets, to Stephanie Sheets back in June, July, when this first came up. Our concerns relate to the increased housing density that's going into Autumn Ridge Ninth. It went from a proposed 38 family units to nearly 100, now 150. And that raises two issues for us. One is that hasn't been discussed, and I don't know whether this is the appropriate forum, but the traffic issues on Union Road. I mean, this addition has two exits out of it, one on First Street and the other at the present intersection of Winning Road and Union Road, which is located somewhere around 400 feet from the corner of Union and West First Street. We think that 150 family units with the potential for 300 vehicles coming in and out of that will create problems with congestion. We already have members complaining about the congestion on the street and speed problems, and they have been in contact with the city. The speed cam monitored it. There was vehicles going in excess of 70 miles an hour on Union Road, and with all the other development, is it time to consider some changes in Union Road to allow better traffic flow, especially if you're going to put 150 plus family units in this area. The second thing that we're concerned about is stormwater runoff. With more construction, driveways, et cetera, you're using up a lot of grass and that to absorb storm. And it's all going to run into that area that just is west of the 9th edition, which is called the Autumn Ridge Stormwater Management Association. And if you look at later on in one of the diagrams, if you look at this development, other than the single family units on the northwest corner of the development, all of the stormwater runs into that, what I'll call grassy ditch there between 9th and I believe 5th edition. And all of the stormwater drainage comes in at the middle or eastern part of it. The upper western part does not collect any of the stormwater drainage. So we're concerned that we're just downstream from this. And we have a pond there. This is all on the Birdsville Creek waterway. And in 2013, before I moved into the area, that pond sustained significant silting and damage from the construction of I don't know which edition, the 3rd edition or 6th edition or the 5th, I'm not sure which. But we went from a pond that supported game fish and it was an average of 15 feet deep to one that's now averages 7 feet deep. And we're concerned if this development goes in, we're going to sustain further damage unless they find a way to control some of the stormwater runoff from this development. Now, I'm going to ask the question of city staff. Do you consider traffic flow issues as this part, or is that another department of the city? And do you feel that there's been adequate provision for stormwater management so that we don't suffer downstream from excessive water flows? Thank you.
Oh, Brad, you're muted.
Pardon me?
Thank you, Doug. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to comment? Okay, we have Robert. And I'll let you in here, Robert.
Hi. I guess just real quick. So Jesse had mentioned my name. I live kind of on the northeast section of Autumn Ridge 5th. And unfortunately, my back of my home got included in the part of the flood zone. I'm unable to refinance. So I guess my question would be, how do we ensure that like those elevations, you know, with the additional runoff and everything from the other side, the new proposed addition, nothing gets worse than it already is? Or is it possible to address that runoff to fix the issue that's already there, I guess, with the homes? But.
All right, Robert, we'll take that question to the city staff here in a minute. All right, are there any other comments from the public? All right, seeing none, I would ask.
Brett, Mr. Leeper, there's one more.
Oh, I see one more now. We have Lyle coming in.
Okay, I think, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, awesome, thank you. You know, and I think that Jesse and Doug brought to light most everything, but I'm curious about what have the impact studies been done on these things, and where can we find that information as we look at how this might affect our homes and community?
That's a good question, Lyle. We'll bring that back to city staff here following questions. Do you have anything else?
No, that's it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Lyle. All right. Any other questions from the public? Comments? All right. Seeing none, I'm going to bring it back to the applicant for a response to comments. Who would like to speak on the applicant's part? All right, Dennis, you're up.
You can hear me now? Okay. Just to correct a few of the facts, the housing proposed is 96 units, not 150. The stormwater issue has been addressed back in 2016 with Autumn Ridge 6th and 7th. As I mentioned earlier, there's an extensive detention area put in with that addition that abutted the west property line that took a tremendous amount of quick runoff away from this area. and put it into what we call the Kinnick detention, because Kinnick Stadium will fit inside of that detention. That's why it got its nickname. All of the runoff, and I think the engineer can address this, and even city staff, it has been reviewed, and the impact of this additional addition was planned for back in the 2016 platting of 6th and 7th.
Dennis, could you speak to the, I think another comment was about the cookie cutter nature of the development. Are you that far along or not?
We will not be the only builder in the development. So the cookie cutter aspect of it will not, as I see it, come into play. So our homes that we did in 8th do all have the same siding, things like that. However, that is not our intent on the product that we build out there for Autumn Ridge 9th. And the other developer or the other builders that come into the park will bring their own ideas and what they'd like to build. So the cookie cutter will not be an issue, I don't think.
Dennis, I heard one other question about traffic. Could you speak to that issue?
As far as traffic, we have complied with everything the city has asked us as far as exits out of the subdivision. You must have 2, obviously, for public safety reasons. Other than that, I don't know how to address Union Road. That's more of a city issue than for us. The pond, the other question, or the other thing that was brought up was all the siltation for the pond at Fieldstone. The majority of that, as we were informed by our engineers previously and currently, and as I said earlier, we have a large drainage area from the west that is uncontrolled farm field that we have no control over. And yeah, that's about all I can say on that.
Okay, any other comments, Dennis?
The damage to the pond was not as a result of Autumn Ridge.
Okay.
So,
All right.
Mr. Leeper, we have, it looks like the project engineer, that would be CGA, has raised hand here.
Hello, this
All
is
right.
Adam Daters with CGA Engineers. I just wanted to add on to the traffic comment. Our traffic engineer for this project, we did run the simulations with the proposed density, and that they determined that was a very little impact with the amount of traffic increase during peak hours and during overall trip, AM and PM trips. This was also required to get our connection out to 57. I believe city staff has reviewed this report, and there are no issues have been brought up since then.
Great. Any other comments from CGA related to the other issues, or those have been addressed?
I don't believe so, not from my end.
Okay, thank you. Karen, we have some other hands up. Are those public comments, or we've closed the public?
I'm not certain who Cindy is. It looks like she has not spoken yet. It might be public, somebody from the public. And then I believe Mr. Stanford has spoken before, but it looks like maybe he has another comment or question.
So we're okay opening up back up the public comments?
I think that's up to the commission. I think it is a meeting to gather
Yep.
comments. So if you're okay with that, if the commission's okay with that.
Yes, we are. We're here to hear everyone. So I'm going to let Cindy in.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can, Cindy.
Okay, thank you. We own the acreage that is to the very north and west side of this development. So we are literally going to be surrounded by all these smaller lots. And in the proposal, the reason I decided to speak is because Mr. Happel mentioned that they were going to have other construction developers come in and do the homes. However, in the proposal, I got the impression that it would be restricted as to who could build homes in these lots, that there would be, it would need approval from his company before they could build on those lots. So that statement he made that they would be a variety of different homes, at first I find that hard to fathom how they can do that with it being such small lots. They're going to have to be pretty uniform in size. And I also am concerned about, just as our own property being right there next to it, we have our own well and water system right now. We are not hooked up to city water or sewer. And in the initial proposals years ago, we got the impression that we would eventually be able to hook up to city water and sewer. Well, because of the elevation of these, this property behind us, we would have to go to the expense, a great expense for us to get like a pump if we have to go to the south side of our property in order to hook up to city water. We were under the impression that we were always going to be able to hook up to the west or northwest corner of our lot, which would be a natural flow going down. And there is no indication that there's a space left for us to be able to access city water and sewer from that direction. And so that was another one of my concerns.
All right, thank you, Cindy.
Cindy, could you state your last name again for the record? I guess you muted to Cindy already. Didn't catch her name.
Hi, yes, my last name is Luchtenberg.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna go back to Jesse. Jesse, you there?
I think I was muted there. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So with all due respect on Dennis's comment, he's talking about Kinnick, which is south and west, right? Just north of that purple spot of the condos down there. I don't know much, but I have a hard time believing that's going to do anything to the doubling of properties to my north. There's no way the water is going to get to that to help shed any of that. So just keep that in mind, I guess, as we take a look at what this all shakes out to be. But
all right, thank you, Jesse. Doug? Having some trouble.
Yes,
Oh, yes.
I wanted to clear something up, and maybe I was misinformed. I just, and Dennis could probably answer this, but I just assumed a duplex lot had a duplex on it, and that represented 2 family units. Is that incorrect, that each duplex lot represents 1 family unit? That's how I came to the family unit figure.
Yeah, that's correct.
That's correct. So we're really looking at 95 family units then, as opposed to the stated 150. And I just need to clear this up so I can inform my board and membership.
That is true, Doug.
I'm sorry that I overstated the density. I was not aware.
Well, we're here to get information, so good clarification. I'm going to go down to Willis Roberts. Willis, are you there? I think you need to unmute maybe on your end. Willis, are you there? Okay, show him as being muted on, I can't control that. Well, this doesn't look like, so.
There we go.
There we are. Number one, as I look at the map, it would appear to me with regard to the curb cut issue with the multifamily residences, that this would be the only area where in fact they would be located on through streets. It would appear the other units are all on dead end or limited access, therefore impacting not only pedestrian safety, but traffic flow. On some of those streets, such as Paddington, the houses, I believe, are on occasion, the vehicle parked in the driveway does in fact hinder sidewalk traffic flow, and with the parking of storage unit or utility trailers on the street, create additional traffic flow problems. Finally, I don't think we can blame all of the sediment or silt movement on properties to the west of this particular area. I mean, the areas west have always been west, and if the silt comes through this particular area to the Fieldstone Pond, it doesn't appear to me that everybody downhill can simply pass the buck. I think up front with the pond that was designed or drawn in, some responsibility was accepted. And, you know, I see times now where with a heavy rain, I have corn husks and other field materials that are coming right under the street and into the pond. So I don't think we can blame that on people all the way out to Parkersburg. Only two comments that I have. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Willis. Any other public comments before we close the public comments again? All right, Dennis, I'm going to bring it back to you.
Okay. The comment about the development all looking the same. In the covenants, it is an item in there that the developer approves or the building committee, in the developer's absence, approves the configuration or the design of the homes. That is quite common in subdivisions, so that we keep
Long cabins.
Yeah, in the longevity or the how do I want to say this? The character of the neighborhood intact, so you don't have a conventional home and then, for instance, an A-frame home. That is quite common to have that in the restrictives, and that is in ours. On the south end of the subdivision is our garden home area that was constructed early on in the subdivision. If you drive out in that area, you will see the garden home concept that we are proposing on the single family lots. Those we feel are very nice. Market value in the 250 to 350, 375 range. So it isn't one of the comments I read earlier, you know, for rentals, et cetera, that isn't what we see as an issue out here. Again, the runoff, we've addressed it. We've been through numerous studies on it, and city staff can obviously chime in on this. Everything has been gone over with a fine-tooth comb numerous times. And so the runoff is not an issue as far as increased flow, et cetera. So
Cindy hooking up to the sewer.
The comment about hooking up to the sewer, we have no control over that. We can only put our infrastructure in that fits us and supply a stub to the adjacent property owners. How it fits their property really we have no bearing or control over that. So those are my comments for now.
Thank you, Dennis. I have one other comment. It looks our hand up for Corey Hines.
Hi, this is actually Amber Hines. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I thought it was interesting that Dennis brought up character of the neighborhoods. I feel that if you drive around any of the neighborhoods around this development, what they're proposing does not match the character of any of the developments around it. I live on the corner of Union and Wynwood, and those are all substantial houses with good sized lots, family houses. And I just feel like what they're proposing is multiple duplexes on small, tiny lots, and it doesn't match with the character of the surrounding neighborhoods at all.
Thank you, Amber. Are there any other public comments before we close the public session for good? All right. Dennis, I don't know if you'd like to speak to that last comment or not.
In this subdivision, as you know, it's RP. So there's a variety of different styles, et cetera, throughout this whole 105 acres. Within a quarter mile of that area, there's 95 multifamily units in Autumn Ridge. So as you go back into the Ledges units are ours. They were in there first. There's 22 homes in each one of those. Those are condos. In that whole area, we have 95 multifamily living units within a quarter mile of Fieldstone and Cherrywood for that matter. So I feel we've mixed in there very well. Several of the comments really didn't even know they were there. So I think what we propose and what we want to construct goes very well with the tone we have set for our neighborhood. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dennis. I'm going to bring it back to commission now. For discussion.
Yeah, Brad, this is Dale. In reviewing the plan, I noticed that maybe the city can answer this. Some of the lots in the southeast corner that are designated for duplexes, only 44 feet wide. Is that allowable by code? There's several lots down there that are 44 feet long. And that seems awful narrow for a duplex. So just reviewing that, it just seemed out of place. Awful small lot to put a duplex on. So
that's for half of a duplex. Is that not correct?
What?
That's for half of a duplex.
Is that for half of a duplex?
Yeah, so just to clarify, these are considered bi-attached single-family dwellings. So they are attached at the lot line.
Okay.
And then each would sit on their own tax lot.
So they'd have 88 feet of frontage.
Right, yeah.
I also feel that there needs to be some place for a park. And I know one of the questions that was raised, would the city take care of the park? And I think if it was done right, I think the city would take care of the park. Is that something that would be correct? Maybe somebody in City Hall can answer that.
Yes, we did check with the Parks Department, and just initially, their initial impression was there was a need for park space here, and they would be, the Parks Commission would be amenable looking at a proposal for a small neighborhood serving park in this location. course, that where that's located and how the access is provided to that park needs to have good access to all the people in the subdivision. Those kinds of factors we look at once something was proposed, but I think we got a positive response from the Parks Department on the willingness to have a parkland dedicated to the city, and then the city would take over management and cost of maintaining that.
While we're on parks, are there any metrics that were used to decide that this one parcel needs to have a park to service a broader area? I guess I'd be curious to know what kind of motivated that decision with this particular piece of ground, especially considering that the apparent aim of these properties is to kind of serve the senior market. I didn't see anywhere that it was age restricted, but it definitely seems to be aimed to serve the senior market. And I personally, I don't know what point there would be to have, a park right in the middle of that necessarily. And if there are some alternative plans that were considered as far as needing a park in this part of town and what dictates that specifically and where else it could go.
So just to respond to that, this is a neighborhood serving park. So we're talking about the master plan for the entirety of Autumn Ridge,
okay,
which is 400 units of housing. And so we're looking at that update to that master plan. And we have a development agreement also with the developer that has not been updated as well. So in that development agreement, it also mentions having shared open space in that agreement. So I think the change here is that they're proposing to eliminate that from the master plan. And the park that's proposed here would be just 2 to 3 acres, which it would be considered the size of a neighborhood serving park. So not intended to be a regional park. It's just similar to like what we did with West Fork and with Pinnacle Prairie and with a number of other large master plan communities, the need for addressing the neighborhood open space needs of that particular large development.
So is there any kind of a decision as to how much space is needed to satisfy those original obligations?
So the original agreement was a 4 to 5 acre, but part of that, of course, was the stormwater management with the lake. And I think staff is okay, fine with that not being a wet bottom stormwater. Obviously that, as Mr. Happel said, was abandoned some time ago, but there's still a need for that open space. And generally the rule of thumb for a small neighborhood park is about 2 to 3 acres to serve that level of number of units.
So if I'm understanding that correctly, this is kind of an obligation to the broader project of 105 acres or whatever. And now that we're at the last of it, that's kind of come due and there needs to be something allocated. Just to keep the project moving along, has there been any specific direction or request as to what that should look like? And who's the authority on that? Is that the Parks Department? Do they need to make a proposal to negotiate with the developer? I'm just curious as to what the process is there so that it doesn't kind of dead end.
So similar to other planned developments, it's up to the developer to propose something for neighborhood open space needs for their development. And then the city would review that to determine if that's, properly located for good access and in a good location for the city to take it over as park space. So similar to other things that you've seen recently with the master plan communities that we've done.
Okay, that makes sense.
Can we get somebody from engineering to speak to the issue of there was stormwater addressed in the 6th, 7th editions. Does that apply to the 9th and 10th, or is it something different?
Yeah, I can speak to that. So with this subdivision and prior subdivisions, regional detention was set up utilizing what is the existing culvert underneath Union Road. And then also, as Dennis had mentioned previously, there's a secondary detention basin in series that goes through that structure as well. At the time, back in 2012, when Autumn Ridge 5th was in design, they accounted for the southern basin to account for a 500-year detention, and then routing into in series into the secondary detention facility, where they had modified and updated the Union Road culvert to detain the 100-year event, release at a 2-year rate, and then they also provided a water quality feature using a sandpoint filter. So all the detention for this area, including what is Autumn Ridge 9th and 10th, were previously included in that 2012 study, and that the facilities have already been installed, and they're operational currently.
So just to add to that, we do have some slides related to the technical aspects of the plats themselves, and I think the engineering department has provided some more detail on those slides, so we can cover that in a little more detail when we get to the subdivision analysis as well.
Other comments and direction to city staff from the group are the recommendations specifically related to the recommendations that were made from city staff.
I would just like to highlight one issue. I think maybe this was not interpreted correctly. The reason about adding that sidewalk connection from Peddington to the northeast corner of the proposed subdivision is also based in our subdivision code as per RP plan living standards, and also is mentioned in deed of dedication. However, there were like no conversations were made when the Autumn Ridge 3rd and 5th editions were in place, but looks like it's going to be benefiting to the entire community. It's not going to, like, that missing sidewalk is not going to do good to any other communities. So that's one. And the second thing, just to add a little bit to what Karen said regarding the open green space, I think even that is supported with the city's subdivision code and also with the RB zoning standards. That just supports the need to have a neighborhood park, and the same is backed by the Parks Department, who also feels that there is a need for a neighborhood-sized park here. So just to clarify some things. Thanks.
Brad?
Yes, Leanne.
I am concerned about all the driveways and the paving and the proximity of those, and the parking and the sidewalk walkability issue with children. I don't agree with the back alley loaded garages because that takes away from the backyards. I agree on that with Dennis on that. But it does seem like a ton of pavement. So is there any way to mitigate some of that?
I have a question. Maybe Matt, you can answer this. In a driveway curb cut scenario like that, where they're directly abutting, what is the maximum allowable width? And is that different than what it is with a single family detached?
It would follow the standard opening, so double up to 24 feet, triple up to would be 32 feet. So in this case, the width of the opening would still be the same as a single family, and then spacing requirements, the flares of the driveways would need to be at least spaced far enough so each flare could be made.
And how much space between them is kind of the minimum standard, or is there one?
We don't have necessarily a minimum standard, but the rule of thumb is always to be able to park a vehicle, which in practice is about 20 feet. Minimum.
We're talking about, we're talking about between the driveway flares on abutting units.
Yes.
To be 20 feet between?
Preferably.
Okay, so the driveways would almost need to be that to the outsides of the building design. So that would then dictate the building design. Am I understanding that correctly? Or could they be treated as one larger opening? Because it seems like the precedent largely is for that, where you've got two driveways that are close together, but not not distance to where you could park a car between them per se. I guess I just want to be clear what the expectation would be here if it were to be left alone.
So currently the width for a double stall garage is 24 feet. So that would have to be maintained in the event where the driveways would be next to each other and the rest of the building would be away. That would take additional review, but the 24 feet at the sidewalk length would be incorporated. And then where the flares of the driveway would meet, that would require, depending on what that spacing is, those details will be worked out at that time.
Okay. Well,
So I'd like to clarify that a little bit too. There's nothing that prevents the developer from sharing the driveways for 2 units. And I think what Matt's talking about is really the maximum width that we'd allow for a 2-car driveway or 3-car driveway. We have maximum widths, but we have a lot of instances around town where we've had constrained rights of way and we've need to share driveways and also then flare out toward the garage. So if the units are set back far enough, that can occur. So there can be some creative solutions here to some of these issues. I think one of the concerns that I know we've had a number of developments recently with bi-attached units. The particular concern about this is that we have units across the street from each other, and it's a pretty large concentrated area of these. And so coming up with some solutions to reduce those driveway widths or the number of driveways could benefit then everybody.
Thank you, Karen. I guess in summary for me, I would encourage the developer to work with the city to address the concerns that have been expressed and come back to the commission after that.
Sorry, I have a couple more things that we haven't touched on yet, if that's all right. And we can address some of these things next time too, but the continuation of the sidewalks in the previous phases, it seems like that maybe is a little bit of an area of contention. Is there, I guess I'd be curious to see very clearly if there's a legal obligation to put those paths in that, or if those phases were done and adopted and it's kind of an oversight, and it's something that's on the city now, I guess that's fine. I don't have any issue with that. I don't see why the city can't put some pavement in here and there, but I just like some clarity on that, like what's the official standing on that. And we can talk about that or circle back to it. I don't really have a preference. I have a couple of other things.
Okay, I'm happy to answer that question a little bit. There is a requirement in the subdivision code, and a lot of times sidewalks are put in, of course, after development occurs because we don't want the construction vehicles driving over the sidewalk. So there's a provision in the subdivision code that allows sidewalks to be put in post development, and then also requires it to be put in within 5 years of completion of the plat, approval of the plat. So, or allows the city to come in and assess that sidewalk back to the development. So there is a provision already in the city subdivision code for doing that. Researching back through the staff reports for those additions, just in respect to Dennis's concern, we did look back through those staff reports to see if there was any specific waiver of that sidewalk along Union Road, and we did not find anything mentioned in the staff reports and the official approvals of those to waive that particular requirement of the subdivision code. So we know it took a while to develop some of those lots. I think there's one more lot yet perhaps to develop in one of those additions that might front on Union, but most of the development has occurred now. And so it's time to put that sidewalk segment in. It seems like a good time to address that with the new development agreement, with this master plan and with this last segment of the subdivision.
Have the sidewalks that are there, were they put in by the developer during other phases, or are the sidewalks there, were they established up to Paddington, I guess it is?
So those were put in as development occurred. You know, as homes were built, then the sidewalks were built subsequent to
Along
that.
Union Road we're talking about.
I'm sorry, what?
Along Union Road we're talking about. That's more of a bike path, I would consider.
So on the west side of Union Road, it's not a bike trail. On the east side of Union Road, it is wider.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. So just a couple other quick comments. I think the Lot 10 site, if we're going to be looking at these at the same time, the Lot 10 site looks pretty straightforward. I don't think there's really much to question there. It makes good sense to me anyway. The 9th phase, a couple of things about that. We already touched on the park thing. You know, the driveway issue with there being so much width there, I don't have any issue with that as long as there's some kind of a game plan that's considered when, you know, if this is RP, if there's some consideration to the building design and how the driveways are going to be laid out. I mean, as long as, you know, as long as it's not a 40 or 50-foot section, if there's space in between, I don't think it's reasonable to expect 20 feet in between driveways with attached units. But if you were to look at a single family patio home, you could have garage right on one side of a lot, and then on the next lot of another single family home, you could have garage on the left side. And if it's a 5-foot setback, you could feasibly have as little as 6 feet in between driveways under single family circumstances. And so I think just as long as there's some thought given to the design, I think giving some line and some freedom there, because it is a bit of a catch-22, and I don't see necessarily that it's a practical expectation based on the price point that was suggested to, you know, extend the driveways or take up additional depth or push the houses, push the units any closer into that detention area. My last thing I had was just more of a question. Is there, if this is planned residential community, is there any logic that was given as to which areas are duplex units and which areas are single family? And because when I looked at the plan, it seemed like it's kind of just a big chunk in the middle, and then the area along the busier road is single family, and then the area way deeper in is single family. Not to subject too much opinion into it, but it just seemed kind of inverted from what I would have expected to see at first blush. I don't have a strong opinion about it. I'm more curious as to just if there was logic given to the specific distribution of the density.
That's more of a question for the developer, but they originally had more duplex units shown in their original submittal that went all the way up to Union Road. Staff had advised the developer that we thought there needed to be some transition from the larger single-family homes into along the edge of the development. We had suggested that might be a good transition.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think we're going to see some of that in the preliminary plats as well, right?
Okay.
So what is
any
the next step?
comments?
There were a lot of open-ended questions on this one compared to other projects that have come up. What is the timeline and kind of the expectation for the next steps?
That's really up for the developer to decide. We had made a lot of these suggestions prior to submitting it to the Planning and Zoning Commission, but the developer wanted to bring this forward to the commission to get your input. And of course, then it depends on what they want to do after the meeting, if they want to adjust anything or go forward with what they have. So it's really in the developers what they would like to bring forward to the commission to consider.
Well, that makes sense.
I would like to hear a little bit more feedback from the commission to give some direction to the developer about whether we agree with the comments city staff and recommendations city staff is making, generally speaking.
Sort of agree with what the recommendations that the city staff has made to the developer, you know, in regards to a lot of the little issues with the curb cuts and with the park and with recreation area. I don't see stormwater being much of a problem, but I certainly would recommend that the developer listen to what the city has to say about some of these issues.
So are we looking for some consensus with the commission as to which areas to work on? Because the one that I see that might be a little bit more unanimous would be the park situation, especially since that's being directed by some requirements or obligations there. So maybe that's a no-brainer. If I'm thinking about this otherwise, the only other thing that I'm seeing is, and if the bike path situation kind of falls into the sidewalk, if that falls into the same sort of category of obligation with the way this is zoned, fine. So really the only question that is left, unless I'm missing something, is the driveways of the duplex units. And I can't say that I agree that they need to be a shared entrance and step back. I don't think that that's really necessary. I just think that there should be some sort of a consideration given to the design of the building and when it would be submitted as a site plan or whatever. If that makes sense, open to thoughts.
I agree with you, Kyle, on that. Just look at some of the design on those driveways and the design of the building. And I agree with you that coming back with the sidewalk and the park is a no-brainer.
I also agree with that as well. Sidewalk and park is important. Plus, I would like just a little bit more clarification on that detention basin along that backside of the fifth, just for my own personal piece.
All right, anyone else? Okay, so this is only for comment and direction at this time. So I think at this point we'll move on to new business item 3 on our agenda, which is the preliminary plat for Autumn Ridge 9th edition. JD, are you going to keep going?
Yep. I'm just going to share my screen again. Thank you, Brett. So here we are. So I'm just moving towards 2 more detail points in this presentation tonight. Preliminary plat for Autumn Ridge 9th is the first one. So as you can see, the blue highlighted area is where this is going. I think we have discussed more details already, but this is just to see more what the developer has proposed in this edition. So as we all know, this is a 2-phase development with both single family units, which is 35 in number, and 60 duplex units. The developer, on the right screen, you can see with the color coded section of where the single family units and the duplex units will be placed. This development will be accessed from the 2 sides, which is a long union through Winwood Drive, which will be continuously extended westward, and an Arunia Drive, which will be extended southward from the West 1st Street. So those are the 2 access points to this subdivision. Coming back to more about the setbacks, which were presented and which is needed for this area. Perimeter setback is something that is required as per RP zoning standard. So as you can see, there are pieces of perimeter setbacks because Some of them has a rear yard face, some of them has a side yard face. So that is the reason why they are different as per the requirements. So as you can see, the red area is the 30 feet perimeter setback, which will have to be updated. I know the current drawing doesn't designate the same. So this is a 30 feet setback because all the rear yards are facing on the perimeter of the subdivision. The purple area, which is towards just south of the West First Street, will be a 20 feet perimeter setback because there is a side yard which is being placed along both these lots. The blue line along the Union is a 20 feet perimeter setback because there's going to be more like a side yard that will be faced by, the rear yard that will be in place in there. And there is also a small section of green line, which is on the southwest corner, which is 20% of lot width as a setback area because it's a side yard. In addition to it, the developer has proposed the front yard setback for all these units to be 20 feet. Side yard for single family units will be 10% of lot width at 20 feet of length. And side yard for duplex units or bi-attached dwellings will be 20% of lot width at 20 feet. And the rear yard is going to be 30 feet for all the units. So just kind of giving a clarity about how the setbacks are laid out.
So I just would like to interrupt for just a moment to clarify. So what JD is talking about are the requirements for the perimeter setback. Now the developer can designate a setback, a perimeter setback that's more consistent around the outside if they choose to do so, but these are the minimum requirements for the perimeter setback in the RP zone.
Perfect. Thanks, Karen. Yep. And also, this brings up an interesting thing that staff noticed. The single family units along Aronia Drive have little backyard. They would have like little backyard space because as you can see, there is a 30 feet perimeter setback. And in the next slide, I'll also show you the reason of drainage easements that is being placed. So this slide, the blue areas highlighted on this plat shows the drainage easement. So there is a 20 feet drainage easement proposed in the entire development, which will be, as you can see, on the periphery of the development, with an exclusion of 35 feet of drainage easement along West First, the line which abuts along West First Street. I think the idea with that 35 feet is there will be some sort of area where the drainage of water will be going in there. So that is the reason. And so this is the other reason why we were thinking that the lots, the single family lots along the Aronia Drive will not have enough backyard space, because people will not be able to put the fence in there or any kind of structure which obstructs the drainage of areas. In addition, the utility is 10 feet easement, which is placed in the front yards of all the lots. So that is something which the utility company have noticed. Going further, this is a stormwater management plan. We have city engineers, both Matt and David here. I think they would be able to best explain this. Over to you, Matt, on this one.
Yep. So stormwater management for Autumn Ridge 9th was previously established with Autumn Ridge 5th edition. There's a regional detention facility located at the Union Road culvert. It provides 100-year detention with a 2-year release rate. And then it also includes a water quality device that's a sandpoint filter. The 2-year release rate structure is an orifice structure. And then there's an overtopping in the event that it would exceed the 100-year event. Overall, throughout the site, the developer and their engineer are planning on installing storm sewer, the capacity of a 10-year event that would be piped to the regional detention facility. And anything that would exceed the 10-year capacity would use overland swales for the emergency overflow drainage pass. It would eventually end up in the regional detention facility.
Thanks, Matt. Moving on, these are some of the areas where I wanted to highlight street connections. The purple area The one along the northward, which is moving towards the undeveloped area on the north edge of the subdivision, is a Braben Drive that is placed to develop this property in future, so that in future there might be a area which we can develop. So there's a room for it. And the extension westward of the Winwood Drive and Chanel Drive towards west will also likely to incorporate future development along the western edge of this subdivision. So developer has provided this access point, and city staff really appreciates the effort to develop the future properties. The major access point to the site is from Union along Winwood Drive, and from West 4th Street, which is the Aronia Drive. So 2 access points to this. I want to highlight the possible mail location that the developer has suggested. The red dots that you see on the maps are the mailbox location. City staff does feel that the mailbox locations are really placed really close to the intersection, and it would be nice to have them like little centrally located so that it's accessible to all the people. However, you can also see there is no mailbox or anything for the people who will be living on the southwest area in this subdivision, and possibly too close to intersection that might also create traffic issues with people accessing mails on a daily basis. So that's another thing that staff notes that might be improved. The Community Development Department has reviewed the proposed preliminary plat, and this here is just for initial discussion with the Planning and Zoning Commission. Staff notes that preliminary plat cannot be approved prior to the approval of the RP master plan, which we discussed initially. And just so we know, if there were any changes that the developer will be doing to RP master plan, those will have to be incorporated in this plat as well, so that it matches it. Also, one thing I forgot to mention earlier, the developer and its team is working to draft a development procedure agreement that goes along with RP master plan amendment. So all those changes will also have to be reflected in that. So I'm just stopping my sharing of the screen here so that the commission can discuss this. Thank you.
Thank you, JD. Anything from the applicant? If you would like to speak to the issue, raise your hand and we'll let you in if perhaps covered things before. But all right, Steve, it looks like.
Hi there. Thanks. Steve Trosky at CGA. Just 2 quick technical comments about that. The first is we'll work with USPS on the locations of those cluster mailboxes. So those aren't set in stone. That's something that the post office would approve, and then they would work with the contractor at the time of installation. The other item is in previous editions of Autumn Ridge, there's a 5-foot side yard setback. And so that is something that the developer would like to see on the internal units of the development. So the perimeter would maintain the RP zoning, but the interior units would remain consistent with the rest of the additions.
Thank you, Steve. Dennis.
Yeah, Steve touched on everything that I was going to say.
All right, thank you, Dennis. All right, at this time I would open it up to public comment. If you have a comment, you can raise your hand in the chat section and we'll let you in. Try not to duplicate any comments that have been made if you can. All right, seeing none, I'm gonna close public comments and bring it back to the commission. discussion items.
I guess I would just,
Hinges on the master plan.
yeah, I would, yeah, I would wait till see what we do on the master plan.
All right. Well, anyone else have any other discussion items on this? If not, we'll move on to the next item. All right, let's move forward with the item 4 on the agenda, which is the preliminary plat for Autumn Ridge 10th edition. And JD, I assume we're coming back to you.
Yep, thank you, Brad. I'm again sharing my screen here. Just a moment, please. So, yep, this is the last piece of tonight's presentation, preliminary plat for Autumn Ridge 10th edition. As you can see, the location is along the west side of Autumn Lane. The blue highlighted area is where this subdivision will be, this addition will be going in. As discussed earlier, this is a two-phased addition with proposal of six sixplexes with 3 sixplexes in each phase. Both these phases will be accessed through private drives through Autumn Lane. As you can see, there are 2 areas where this will be developed, and both these phases will be connected with an internal private street, which will be going north-south. Just like the other one, we are highlighting the setbacks here too. Perimeter setback here is 35 feet, which is proposed by the developer. This was also, just to mention that this was also part of Autumn Ridge. Portion of the area was initially part of Autumn Ridge 2nd edition, which had a 35 feet perimeter setback, so that is continued. The other areas, in addition to the perimeter setback, the developer has proposed front yard setback to be 20 feet, side yard setback 8 feet, and rear yard setback to be 35 feet for this sixplexes. These are the minimum standards proposed and by the developer. So just so we know. The easements here, as you can see, there are 2 big easements here, ingress, egress, which are the private drives on phase 1 and phase 2, which are 43 feet wide, and which is the east-west connection, whereas the north-south connection, which is the private drive, will have 30 feet ingress, egress easement on this addition. Along with it, the drainage easement, which is 12 feet along the west side of Autumn Lane, and there are chunks of 20 feet setback along the southern section of Lot 1 and southern section of Lot 4, whereas northern section or northeast section of Lot 6. In addition, there is also a 25 feet drainage easement, which is proposed on the western edge of this subdivision. In the next slide, this is just a movement of water or a storm water management plan that will be followed in this. Like previously discussed in the 9th edition, I would like Matt to weigh in more details about this 10th edition as well. Over to you, Matt.
Thanks, JD. For the stormwater management for Autumn Ridge 10th edition, the conveyance of stormwater will go to the detention facility located to the north. The facility to the north is more conservative, and it detains a 500-year event. And this was already previously accounted for in that 2012 study. With this is in line, this is in series with the previous regional detention as well. So the 2-year release rate has already been factored in along with water quality device. On site, it is private streets, so therefore they'll have private storm sewer connections on the street. The private storm sewer network will convey the 5-year event. And then as JD explained with the drainage easements, anything that would exceed that 5-year event would go through overland flow routes to the north.
Thanks, Matt. Just for the note of commission and the meeting, there was public comment or a phone call received at city staff. I think the owners were from the existing six plexes. They were concerned with the management of stormwater just behind their lots. So possibly here, which is like the southern edge of lot 1, this is where they live, and they were concerned with the way the management of stormwater was going on, because they had their garages flooded twice until now. So they were just wondering what is the timeline of this situation getting fixed. And I think this is more of a developer question, but just for the commission and the meeting to note. Moving on, there are 2 street access points, as we discussed, which are highlighted in yellow. Both were the private drives. There is one mailbox location, which is in the center of both the phases, as highlighted in circle. And the street connection will be between these 2 phased areas, and this phased area will be connected as a purple arrow is shown. Just so everybody knows, this development is not getting connected to the existing development, which is just the south of this area. So that is just for the record. The Community Development Department has reviewed this proposed preliminary plat for 10th edition. And this is just an initial introduction to the Planning and Zoning Commission and take any comments. Staff notes that preliminary plat cannot be approved prior to the approval of RP master plan, and any changes that were made in master plan has to be adopted in this preliminary plat, along with the update of the revised development procedure agreement that would go along with the RP master plan. So over to you guys. Let me stop sharing my screen here. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, JD. I don't know if there are any additional comments from the developer. If there are, raise your hand. Seeing none, I would open it to public comment. If you do, raise your hand. Again, I don't see any, so I'm going to close public comment and bring it back to the commission. Again, this is subject to the master plan, similar to the last plat for the 9th edition. Any comments?
So we can approve this separately from the other items, is that correct?
No, this needs to also be approved post approval of the master plan.
Okay, so we need to approve the master plan before we can look at the plat for this 9th phase, correct?
For this 10th phase, yes.
Or 10th, yeah, sorry. Well, I guess that answers that then.
This project does seem a little more straightforward, though.
Is there any way to separate it, or would that be more complicated?
I believe we have to, it really is connected to the master plan.
Okay. Well, I guess once we get the master plan sorted out, then this and the rest of it should become a little bit more straightforward.
Exactly. All right. With that, I'm going to take it back to Marty.
Great. Thank you, Brad. Did all the heavy lifting tonight. We have just one other item of business tonight before we finish up, and that is every year we have to select the officers for the coming year for a chair and vice chair of the commission. And as I have served 2 consecutive years as chair, I will be going off as the chair for next year. And but one of my final duty, I guess, is to appoint the nominating committee for next year. And I've spoken with Amanda and Dale and asked them if they would serve as our nominating committee for next year, and they have both agreed to do so. And so they will be bringing to us in one of our 2 December meetings, nominations for chair and vice chair for next year. And then we will vote on those, or we have the options to make nominations at that point from the floor, but we need to have some nominations submitted, and they will be doing that. So appreciate their willingness to do that, and we look forward to your report back in December. So is there any questions from the commission on that whole process? Okay, well, I think that concludes all of our regular business. We would have Karen, if you have any commission updates before we
I don't have anything in particular tonight. Let me think. We do have some more resilience plan opportunities for the community to weigh in December, January, and February. They will, so you should check out the website for those upcoming opportunities. There'll be something in our upcoming occurrence article about that. And of course, at your last meeting, we went through the timeline for the review of the downtown code. And we also will be having soon draft presented early next year with regard to the College Hill vision plan. So a number of upcoming exciting planning projects that are ongoing.
Great. Thank you very much. Well, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a